Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, first, good evening and welcome to Monday's Update programme, a half-hour roundup of what's been happening news-wise. Coming up tonight, why there's no money for dental recommendations to be implemented. Also, the British Medical Association hopes the recent threat of doctors' strike action will serve as a catalyst for change. We'll also have details of the reaction to the Steam packet changing the child-to-adult ratio policy. We will be reflecting on the 80th anniversary of Auschwitz liberation. And as ever, keeping an eye on the weather, the traffic and the travel. And if you'd like to get in touch, we would love to hear from you. You can text 166 177 or email us studio@manxradio.com. We'll start with the news headlines roundup with Christian Fastamai.
The British Medical Association says it's incredibly disappointing that doctors on the Isle of Man felt strike action was their last resort.
It is within the gift of your politicians and their relationship with the people of the Isle of Man to decide and plan what is a reasonable cost for the expertise.
Industrial action was called off with less than 24 hours' notice after Manx Care issued a revised 8% pay offer. Today, people around the world will pause and remember the victims of the Holocaust as the Memorial Day marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz.
We keep saying, and we've always said, never again. But unless we remember what happened, it's just a story in a book.
That's late Commissioner Leonard Singer there. He was involved for many years in a special service which again took place over the weekend. The company which has the tender to dispose of electrical and electronic waste on the Isle of Man says more education is needed about why prices have increased following criticism that it would lead to increased fly tipping. Since the start of the year, people leaving appliances at amenity sites have been charged for the first time or seen existing charges rise. And Summerhill in Douglas remains closed to traffic from today through till Friday due to emergency works to fix a mains power fault. The closure runs from King Edward Road to Strathallan Road with diversions in place. In the latest international news now, and 7 people have been jailed for between 8 and 20 years over a child sex abuse ring in a Glasgow drug den.
It's very hard to find adequate words to describe how shocking and horrific what's happened to what were very young children over a prolonged period.
Victims were raped, forced to abuse each other and convinced their attackers were witches and wizards. Tens of thousands of people have been returning to northern Gaza for the first time in 15 months as the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas holds. Many have been making the journey on foot to a largely destroyed region. And a person living in the West Midlands has been infected with bird flu. The UK Health Security Agency doesn't believe there are any other cases. Those are the Update News headlines next at 6.
Thank you very much indeed, Christian. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. Occasional showers, sometimes heavy, merging into a longer spell of rain for a time this evening. Strong to gale force southerly winds. They'll back southwest this evening. No, they won't. Southeast. And they will decrease. It'll stay cloudy. Outbreaks of rain continuing overnight. Moderate to fresh, gradually backing northeast. Later, minimum temperatures will be around 4. So tomorrow it'll be pretty cloudy. A few showers at times. Moderate to fresh, mainly northerly winds. And top temperatures tomorrow around 8 Celsius. Sunset this evening was at 4:50. Sunrise tomorrow morning 8:13.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
Simply income protection from Kestrel Insurance. A choice of benefits. Simple underwriting and peace of mind with a regular income for up to 2 years if you're unable to work due to illness or injury. Kestrel Insurance is registered with the Isle of Man Financial Services Authority.
Carpetland, the carpet specialist with the island's best value carpets in stock, often fitted within a week. Furnitureland for 3-piece suites, dining and living room furniture and a selection of amazing beds. Carpetland and Furnitureland, West Street, Ramsey.
Making life easier with Manx Mobility at the top of Summerhill. Are you looking for a stair lift? Look no further with Which Magazine's #1 recommended stair lifts. Now provided by Manx Mobility. Access BDD stair lifts. Call us today on 200 680. The exclusive Karcher store is open with thousands of products, accessories and parts in stock. For Karcher sales and service, Hersham Electrical, Shipyard Industrial Estate, Ramsey.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's just gone 5:05. So there's currently no money available to support any of the recommendations made in a new report which looks at improving the oral health of children on the Isle of Man. So Public Health has made a number of suggestions after data showed more than a quarter of 5-year-olds surveyed have decayed, missing or filled teeth. Well, news editor Tessa Hawley is with me now. I'm guessing first off, Tessa, this is going to be pretty concerning news for parents on the island.
Absolutely. So these findings have been revealed in the Children's Oral Health Report, which has been published this month. Now, oral health is the state of the mouth and teeth, and good oral health enables people to eat, breathe and speak. Now, Public Health says poor oral health is almost entirely preventable. However, it remains a significant concern here on the Isle of Man. And it adds that overall oral health for 5-year-olds on the island does not appear to be improving. So further work is absolutely necessary to prevent worsening issues.
So I understand this report is based on data that was collected last year, wasn't it? What can you tell us about that?
That's right. So some of this data came from an online questionnaire on oral health habits amongst reception and Year 1 children and an epidemiology survey of 5-year-olds. Now, that took place in November 2023 and then last year. Analysis of that data identified 4 themes: toothbrushing, dental visits, eating and drinking habits, and impact on parents and carers. And the data shows for most measures of oral health, children on the island have worse teeth than their counterparts in England as a whole. And for most measures, the island is comparable to the northwest of England, and that's an area with the poorest oral health outcomes.
So I guess, Tessa, the question is, what can or should be done to improve things then?
Well, Public Health says every child should have the opportunity to grow up free of tooth decay, and it believes preventative advice and intervention is essential in achieving this. And it says this is particularly important when access to dental services is notably difficult. And I think all our listeners know how much that is an issue for the island at present. Public Health is recommending that a number of programmes are funded and then delivered on the island, and that includes the application of fluoride varnish twice yearly for children, the continuation of the supervised toothbrushing programme Smile of Man, and obviously more surveys, including extending it out to include 12-year-olds. But importantly, Public Health points out that all of these suggestions require funding, as currently there is, and I quote, no budget available to support any of this work.
Tessa, thank you so much. And just a reminder, you can read the full Children's Oral Health Report at manxradio.com. Posted this on social media as well, and lots of thoughts from you, so keep those coming in. Perhaps it might be something you'd like to talk about on Man in Line, which is available midday during the week. 5:08. The British Medical Association hopes the recent suspension of planned strike action can serve as a catalyst for improving the culture following a series of reviews it describes as woefully poor. Philip Banfield believes that if the culture improves, attracting and retaining doctors will become more successful and infinitely more cost effective.
There is a new chair of Manx Care. There's a new medical director coming from my neck of the woods in North Wales. You have an opportunity now with this pay offer to reset that relationship between Manx Care and its skilled expert doctors. If they take that opportunity, things will be positive. If they don't take that opportunity, if they don't improve the culture, then the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and I'll be back to gauge the improvement in culture in future months.
It seems unlikely that this will be the last that we speak in the midst of pay negotiations, whether that's this year or in several years' time. What would your advice to Manx Care, DHSC, Treasury, that they could take to avoid any such action being taken in the future?
Well, the advice is very simple. Value your workforce. Listen to your workforce. The expertise of doctors on the island is not cheap. It's a significant investment. You need to facilitate that expertise in being able to deliver care for patients. Too often, so for example, I've come to the island today to find outpatient clinics cancelled, operating lists cancelled, well, that's a complete waste to have highly skilled doctors sitting around doing nothing. Ensure that doctors are able to get on with the job. That is what this island needs, and this is what the patients need as well.
That is BMA Chair Philip Banfield talking to Christian there. It's just gone 5:10, so the homelessness survey ends today. There are questions about it in the House of Keys this week. John Moss is with me now. You've been taking a look at this survey, John. What sort of impression can you give us?
Well, I suppose it depends on, you've got to ask yourself, where does it go from here? I suppose for most people, homelessness is the picture we see on the TV and appeals for help with the Salvation Army and others, people huddled on the pavements as night falls. We don't tend to see that specific picture over here. Well, this survey consists of tick-box answers, and here's some of them. First two are linked. The first one is, which of these resonates with your understanding of homelessness? A bit of a clumsy question. Resonates means it sounds true or has meaning for you. There are then 12 categories, tick boxes, including people living rough. Does that resonate to you as homelessness? Which I suppose, of course, it would do. People living in emergency accommodation, people living in their cars, people living in insecure accommodation, people affected by abuse, and a few more. The next section asks the same categories. It has the same list, and it says, do you think this is experienced in the Isle of Man? The survey asks if the surveyee has ever been homeless, if they're aware of homelessness in this island, east, west, south or north. It asks, how serious a problem do you think it is here? Is there a risk, it asks, of the person filling in the survey being homeless in the near future over the next year? Will homelessness decrease, increase, stay the same in the Isle of Man, it asks. Then an important question, what causes homelessness? Housing affordability? Rental availability, relationship breakdowns, domestic abuse, mental health issues, financial issues? And is homelessness preventable? If you came across a homeless person, would you know where help is available, it asks. Is there sufficient support? Now, I visited New York some years ago. In the evening, I passed people setting out their stall to sleep in doorways. The thought of spending the night exposed not only to the weather, but presumably to lack of food, as well as being exposed to those who might see attacking these people as entertainment, while I could go and lock my door behind me in my modest hotel room, left an image with me which will not go away, nor indeed should it.
And do we know, John, what the intention is once the survey results have been gathered and processed?
It doesn't say what they're going to do with them. All it is, and I have the list in front of me of all the categories, etc. They'll collect this information. There is a question coming in Keys from Mr. Hooper tomorrow asking about a needs audit. What effect will this survey, once they get the results of it, have on this needs audit? So presumably there's a correlation between these two. Once you get the picture of how much homelessness is, then they work out how much need there is to actually support it and how much cash is available to actually make sure that nobody is homeless. Have you ever been homeless?
No, it's an interesting one, though. I mean, I'm, touch wood, very lucky, but, you have that perception, don't you, that we're all not very far away, depending on our circumstances, from potentially ending up in a situation where you don't have a roof over your head. And it's the perception of what homelessness is, isn't it? I think that image of somebody out on the streets is a very clear one, but the people who sort of are the sofa surfers, as they've been referred to, who don't have anywhere permanent to call their home, but really rely on the generosity of their friends for shelter.
Well, what's important in this is how many people take part in the survey. It's all very well floating this, but if people who know of people who are homeless and their situation don't actually fill this in, the picture will not emerge of how serious it is. And for most of us, we will still assume it's not a big problem.
And just finally, people have still got a little bit of time to fill this in?
Well, today. Obviously, in these days of the website, you've got until the last tick before midnight. So basically, you've got up until midnight. I would urge you, if you know of information that will help the government looking at this problem, working out how great a problem it is, then get stuck in. You've got quite a few hours. It'll take 15 minutes, we're told, to fill in this survey, and then that will give the information the government hopefully we'll be able to act on.
And this is on the Consultation Hub website?
This is on the Consultation Hub website. You can find it in other places as well, actually.
If you just
it's all around the place.
Type in Homelessness Survey Isle of Man, I'm sure you'll find it. John, thank you very much indeed. It's coming up to 5:15, or children on the Isle of Man with complex needs who are non-verbal are some of the most vulnerable people in our society because they can't tell us what's happening in their world. It's a view of the children's champion on the island, who says she wants to bring about meaningful change for those children over the next year. Kerry Sharp has shared a number of recommendations in her latest annual report, which Siobhan has been reading.
The new report marks Mrs Sharp's second as Children's Champion and covers the period of April 2023 to 24. In that time, Ofsted has reviewed the island's children's services, with an improvement board subsequently set up on the topic. And Tynwald has set up its Youth Select Committee, where young people can voice their opinions and hold government and organisations to account. This year, Mrs Sharp has focused on children with complex needs and the current gaps in services which their parents and Ofsted have raised. As a result, she's penned 7 recommendations for Tynwald to approve next month. These include the inspection of all accommodation for older children in care, for young care leavers and for older children estranged from their parents who, having presented as homeless, have been put into accommodation by St Christopher's. That the Department of Education, Sport and Culture should consider creating a government multi-agency complex needs nursery with specialist staff. And that the DESC, Manx Care and St Christopher's should identify an appropriate location for an assessment home which is good enough for one's own child. She's also calling for the DESC to work with Manx Care, local authorities, the third sector, private sector and the public to draw up an overall strategy for children with complex needs. She says appropriate respite needs to be made available, along with transport options for the few families who have no other means of leaving the house. She's also calling for adequate numbers of larger disabled parking spaces, public space changing places which are available 24/7 and fully accessible play equipment in the north, south, east and west of the island. The full report and its various recommendations will be debated at next month's sitting of Tynwald.
Siobhan there with that report reflecting on Mrs Sharp's comments. We have asked to speak to Mrs Sharp about her report and the recommendations, and we will be doing that before it goes to Tynwald. 17 minutes past 5.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Well, fortunately, nothing to report on the police pages this evening. Just remember that, as Christian mentioned in the headlines, Summerhill in Douglas is closed to traffic from today until Friday. That's because of an emergency work needed to fix a mains power fault. So that closure runs from King Edward Road to Strathallan Road. There are diversions in place, but everything else is as you probably saw it this morning. All okay down at the airport, and the latest from the steam packet, the Manxmen left Heysham at 1:45, getting into Douglas anytime now really, some around 5:35ish, and heading out again to Heysham at 7:15. Just be advised though that because of some damage caused by Storm Eowyn at the Isle of Man Sea terminal, foot passengers do need to arrive a little bit earlier than usual to check in.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
Well, we're going to stay with the steam packet now because a complete failure, ludicrous and an abuse of monopolised position. Just some of the ways in which political members have described changes to the steam packet company's child-to-adult ratio policy. Now, you might remember in October, the ferry provider revealed it was introducing it as a safety measure, and that was because there was an increase in the number of issues with the behaviour of children on its vessels. Education Minister Daphne Kane told her Tynwald colleagues it could mean Manx children won't be able to take part in off-island school trips anymore.
The Department of Education, Sport and Culture was not aware of the changes being made to the Steam Packets Group travel policy ahead of them being announced in October last year. The Department's policy for school trips, which is aligned with that of the UK Department for Education, stipulates a ratio of 1 adult per 10 children plus 1 additional adult for the entirety of the group. The Department has made the Steam Packet aware that this discrepancy between our policy and their updated requirements poses challenges for organising school trips. The Department also advised that if the Steam Packet's declared position on these ratios remain the same, our island schools may not be in a position to facilitate any school trips off-island. The Department did ask the Steam Packet to consider aligning their group travel policy with, or more closely to, the Department's school trip supervision ratios. However, the Steam Packet advised that they are not in a position to change their policy as it has been put in place with the health and safety of passengers and crew in mind. Although schools will need to comply with the ratios set by the Steam Packet in order to be allowed to travel, the Steam Packet has advised that they do recognise the position this has put schools in. Further discussions have taken place, and the Department is aware the Steam Packet are keen to work with all groups to address their concerns and have suggested different ways in which the child-adult ratios can be addressed. While the department recognises that educational visits provide a valuable opportunity for pupils and young people to encounter experiences which may not be available to them in the classroom, there are experiences offered through other educational facilities on the Isle of Man. The department is hopeful that with the help of the STEAM packet, suitable solutions can be found to ensure that school trips continue to go ahead.
That is the Education Minister, Daphne Kane, who was talking to her Tynwald colleagues about this change in policy from the STEAM packet. Well, the STEAM packet has given us a statement in response saying, while we fully understand and appreciate the concerns of politicians, the public and business owners regarding economic and social impacts of our policy decisions, our first priority is always to ensure the safety and comfort of passengers, crew and vessels at all times. We can't compromise on this. This is something that has come up on the Man in Line over the past couple of weeks. Some very opposing views on this. Some people really commending the STEAM packet for it, saying that they have seen experiences of poor behaviour by children on vessels, and other people really questioning it. So it is clearly one of those that is dividing opinion, and we will bring you more as we have it. 21 minutes past 5. Well, today, people around the world are remembering the victims of the Holocaust and more recent genocides which have taken place in the decades since. This year, Holocaust Memorial Day marks the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest Nazi concentration camp complex. Siobhan has this report.
The theme for this year's Holocaust Memorial Day is For a Better Future, with organisers saying that they hope today can be an opportunity for people to come together, learn both from and about the past, and take actions to make a better future for all. Here on the Isle of Man, a special service held over the weekend saw people gather at St Mary of the Isle Cathedral on Hill Street in Douglas. The annual event sees people gather to remember via prayer and song. The late Leonard Singer was involved in the service for over 20 years and always reiterated the same message, that the point of remembering such awful things is to ensure they never happen again.
We must not forget. We keep saying, and we've always said, never again. But unless we remember what happened, then, for example, for children, hearing about the Holocaust, unless you bring it alive to them, it's just a story in a book. For them to know, as I say, what went on, because our lives are in their hands now, aren't they? They're going to plan for the future, policies for the future, and this, if they've got foremost in front of them the need to celebrate our differences, that's very, very important.
Dr. Christine Schmidt is the Deputy Director and Head of Research at London's Viner Holocaust Library. She told me that the act of searching for a missing person in itself can be seen as an act of commemoration.
Even the act of searching for someone, even if you don't clarify what happened to them, is really important because that name is remembered and that name is spoken again. That act of searching is really important as a form of commemoration, and our research team will also file information at Yad Vashem to commemorate those people who, if for example, we do a search for someone and they've discovered family members that they didn't know existed. Mm-hmm. And so we are able to record those names as other victims of the Holocaust who were not previously known. And so that act of somebody looking for that name and saying that name again keeps their memory alive.
That is the Deputy Director and Head of Research at London's Holocaust Library. We also heard there from the late Leonard Singer, very poignant to hear from him during this report. He died last year. So the theme for this year's Holocaust Memorial Day is For a Better Future. And over here there was a special service over the weekend which saw people gather at St Mary of the Isle Cathedral on Hill Street in Douglas. Lots of coverage about the anniversary on the BBC this evening. 24 minutes past 5. Let's turn our attention to sport. And before we go to Darren, we'll just remind you about the FC Isle of Man game at the weekend. They scored 2 of the 3 second half stoppage time goals as they claimed a wild 2-1 win over AFC Liverpool in the NWCFL Premier Division on Saturday night. Jacob Crook netted in the 94th minute for the Manx side after they'd seen a striker sent off for 2 bookable offences during the second period. Elliot Taylor equalised equalised 2 minutes later for the visitors before Steve Whitley slotted it home in the 8th minute of extra time and dramatically secured all 3 points for the Ravens. I'm not going to take your job as a sports person, Darren, but lots of other things happening. We're going to start with motorsport.
Yeah, starting with the TT, rising Manx star Marcus Simpson has signed a 2-year deal with WH Racing powered by Dino Bike. After missing from the 2024 grid, WH have made an ambitious return by taking on last year's debutant. Simpson's impressive second-place finish at the 2023 Manx Grand Prix senior race earned him a move to the TT, where he contested in all classes. Although it was a challenging 2 weeks for the Douglas rider, the 26-year-old managed 12th in the Superbike TT race, where he also lapped 125.9 miles per hour, his personal best for the event. Simpson said he learnt a lot last year, but there is more to come. Onto football, and Peel were beaten by a Corinthians comeback, which saw 11 goals scored in the match. Peel led 3-1 at half-time in the Canada Life Premier League game, but 4 second-half goals by João Marques sealed a dramatic comeback at Ballafletcher. Corinthians are now level on points with Peel at the top of the league, but have played a game more. In rugby, and all 3 Manx sides won at the weekend. Douglas smashed Winnington Park 40-10 away from home in the Regional 2 Northwest, while Vagabonds beat Fleetwood 24-10 in the County 3 AMD Lancs Cheshire. Southern Nomads also impressed with a 43-point win over Aldershot in the Cheshire Bowl. Great Britain triathlon athlete Georgia Taylor-Brown will make a guest appearance at the Isle of Man Sports Awards next month. Taylor-Brown won gold in the mixed relay in 2020 at the Tokyo Olympics, where she also won silver for the individual event. She also won bronze in the mixed relay in Paris last year. The shortlist for the Isle of Man Sports Awards was unveiled earlier this month and includes Sir Mark Cavendish and Billy Harris. And finally, entries have opened for the Pre-TT Classic Road Races 2025. Competitors have been asked to register online at www.southern100.com. Southern 100 has also confirmed that there are no changes to the race programme.
Thank you very much indeed, Darren. It seems crackers to think we're already thinking about motorsport now, but it will soon be upon us. And just thinking about Marcus Simpson, he's one of the guests on the Journey to a Dream podcast. You can find that at manxradio.com. Really interesting chat with him. This is before really his racing last year as he was setting out for the TT course for the first time. That is all from Update this evening. Coming up next, it's Agenda with Phil Gaughan. Chris Kinley will be here from 6 with Greatest Hits. Then it's Time for Brass with Ian Cottier from 9. And Dave Moore will be looking after you with After Hours from 10. Do join Ben and Sean from 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Update will be back with you from 5 tomorrow. Have a great evening, whatever you're doing.